Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're all doing well and keeping safe on this Thursday. Again, like yesterday, we are just waiting for the official statement, the official confirmation from Chelsea Football Club that the Todd Boehly consortium have bought Chelsea Football Club. Just the official confirmation. I mean, that is literally it. Now we've had government approval, we've had Premier League approval, we've had the EU approval, we've seen screenshots of funds going into the government that have been released today, basically almost confirming that it's almost done. And it's a relief. Obviously, I think, listen, it's just a formality now. It's a bit like when you sign a player, you know. I think nowadays, because of all the reporting and stuff, we know a player's going to sign for Chelsea before it even happens, and then you're just kind of waiting for the official announcement. So once we get that, absolutely brilliant. But as you expect, going to be so much news and I think events in the coming days and weeks ahead, because so much to happen. Chelsea have got to get back to business. Transfers, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So many players being linked not only to Chelsea but potential exits as well. So we want to get into that straight away. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you once again for all of your kind words and comments since I've started doing videos again. It really means the world to me. So let's get into it. Firstly, with a player I did not expect to be speaking about on this of all weeks, but he released a statement today, and I think it is relevant and linked to the new ownership and the new regime and what Chelsea need to be doing in the transfer window moving forward and trying to avoid the mistakes of the past. Danny Drinkwater. We know Danny Drinkwater been on loan at Reading this season from Chelsea. His contract with Chelsea expires this summer, very, very soon actually. And he released a statement, basically a farewell letter to Chelsea fans on his Instagram. So let's read it. My time at Chelsea has come to an end. Actually feels really strange writing this. Me, the club and fans are hugely disappointed with the outcome. There is no doubt about that. Injuries, how I have been treated, mistakes I have made, issues off the pitch, lack of game time. The list of excuses could be endless, but I would not and cannot change what's happened. I'm going to look at the positives over the past 5 years. I have played with great players, coached by awesome managers, worked with some brilliant staff, met some fantastic people, lived in some beautiful places, travelled the world and won some more silverware. Football's a fantastic sport, but this for both parties was a business move gone wrong. It's as black and white as that. To Chelsea fans, I apologise for how this has turned out. I would have loved for you to see me at my best in that shirt doing what I love. All the best. So it's very easy to be, I think, pessimistic and cynical. I'm not going to spend too long on Danny Drinkwater because, listen, the story of Danny Drinkwater has been written at Chelsea for quite a while. Basically, Drinkwater confirming what we've all thought for about 4 or 5 years now in terms of the transfer, the initial deal, him being loaned out, series of loans. I'm glad he's been so honest with it and hasn't tried to hoodwink all of us. I tweeted about this, you know, it could have been quite a cynical and quite a easy PR message of just like, that's it from Chelsea. And you see a lot of players wouldn't be that honest. But, you know, he's going out and I think the fact that he said as much, I think it is quite refreshing. But Timo Bakayoko, Davide Zappacosta, who has left actually from last summer, Baba Rahman, Michy Batshuayi, Ross Barkley, Kennedy. I've probably missed someone out there. Most of those coming from the 2017-18 window, that disastrous season actually. Kind of a lesson of what Chelsea shouldn't be doing in the future under Todd Boehly, and kind of the idea in transfers that we just shouldn't be stockpiling players anymore. We can't afford to, I think, under new ownership compared to what we did under Roman. Withholding players whose values have depreciated to such a level, like Drinkwater, that Chelsea never got a fee for him and he just walked out the door for free basically near the end of his career. And it's not a unique situation with Drinkwater. You can't say it's an isolated example. Bakayoko's the same, barely playing for AC Milan. Emerson is a little bit different. He's got some game time. Baba Rahman, Michy Batshuayi, these players have got more game time, but at the same time, there is a point now that Chelsea need to, I think, cut with a lot of these players and really move forward. And Drinkwater, I mean, I don't know whether I can say I do wish him the best. Whatever he does next, it's just such a bad transfer, and I think a lot of us still have cold sweats over that 2017 summer window because it was so bad. But let's think about this window and potential signings. We've spoke about defenders. I want to get to Jules Kounde later in this episode because my colleague Adam Newson wrote a really good piece about it and some insight into why Kounde wants to join Chelsea. But in terms of attacking players, there's been a lot of attackers linked to Chelsea. One of the names, Christopher Nkunku from RB Leipzig. This is from Nazar Kinsella on goal. Chelsea are among clubs interested in the RB Leipzig forward who won Bundesliga Player of the Year. The 24-year-old is in contract negotiations with Leipzig, but the Blues believe they are able to disrupt the talks and take advantage. So firstly with Nkunku, I know when we think about an RB Leipzig forward that Chelsea are interested in, red flags because of a player I'm about to speak about. It's quite obvious. But he's been, really good this season. He has. I think, in terms of the amount of goals he's scored, he was scoring goals, and even before this season, this very much has felt like his breakout one. A bit like Timo Werner, and there's a lot of clubs apparently in for him, interested in him, and you kind of do think, will this be the summer where he makes a big move or he signs a new contract with RB Leipzig, because they did obviously sell Werner back in 2020. That was a release clause that Chelsea triggered. I'm kind of a little bit skeptical. I said this in yesterday's episode, if you haven't watched it, about potential attackers and us signing them and the worry of failing on that front again. In terms of, if you say to me right now Chelsea can only sign one attacker, I wouldn't be prioritising Nkunku, because I don't think he's exactly what the team needs, more than, say, a creative winger, which I'll get to in a minute. But of course Chelsea need to sell attackers if we want to sign someone. And one of the names that could be leaving this summer is Timo Werner, who was signed from Leipzig in 2020. Borussia Dortmund have been interested in signing Werner. This is from the same report from Goal, but appear to have gone cold on a deal over cost. Currently, Werner is the Blues' fourth highest paid player on around 275 grand a week. And Nazar goes on to say that the Blues are able to cash in on Omando Broja, who is a hot asset targeted by West Ham, Newcastle, Southampton, Inter, AC Milan and Napoli. He says that as an exciting prospect, and 25 million could start the conversation over a possible transfer. However, Thomas Tuchel is currently wanting to see the Albania international in pre-season before making such a decision. It's when I start hearing that Chelsea are struggling to sell senior player but can cash in on academy player, you're just instantly transported back to last summer, aren't you? In terms of all of the players that we let go, Tammy Abraham, Fikayo Tomori, Mark Gurhey, Tino Livramento, all those situations are different, but if you remember at the time, I think all of them, you can criticise the club, I think, with a lot of them, particularly in terms of long-term planning, which has been such a problem at Chelsea, and again, a bit like the Drinkwater situation in a different way, valuing Cobham, valuing the next generation of players. And with Werner, my opinions on him. I felt for quite a while now that this should be the end for Timo Werner at Chelsea, and that I just don't think he's going to radically improve enough to become a player worthy of that price. I mean, when you look at some of the contract negotiations that could be happening this summer, where Mason Mount, Reece James, apparently that's a big thing this summer, which would be great news, both of them being signed to new deals. But even them doubling their wages apparently won't even get them. It may get them closer, obviously, to Timo Werner, but to still not be at that level, considering their output compared to Werner over the previous season, it's just ridiculous, and it makes you think football's broken, basically, because Werner's a nice guy, but he it's about Chelsea being competent now and being shrewd in their business and their squad building, and you hope that situation can be resolved, because I also just think for Werner, he struggled so much, he's got so much support, which is nice to see, but I just think for his own sake, and I think his own career, he's just much better suited to the German game. He really is. He may have flashes like we saw in April where he comes into a bit of life, but it didn't take long for that form from Werner, that slight revival to dwindle, and we got back to sort of usual things with Werner. So my hope is this summer on a general theme is that if we can sell senior players over just cashing in on young players and thinking that's the easiest thing to do because the money's right there, that's kind of my priority, because I think that the squad needs to be revamped, and I'd like to see Broja given a chance, just the same as Conor Gallagher, Levi Colwill, Ethan Ampadu, Billy Gilmore, these players coming back, Ian Maatson, Dujon Sterling. I think I've mentioned them before. I think all of them you'd love to see at least given a little bit of a run in pre-season, so Tuchel can have a look at them a bit like Chalobah last year, and see if they can offer and provide an internal solution that we don't need to go out and spend more on elsewhere. So that's kind of my feelings. And there have been other names linked. Raheem Sterling we spoke about on, I think, Monday or Tuesday. Obviously, we've mentioned Nkunku, Jonathan David from Lille, but one other name I do want to mention would be my preferred attacker, who was, if you go, I'm not going to hide it, back in January when this guy was linked, I was very sceptical because of his injury record. But as the months has gone on and his form with Barcelona has got so good, and he's looking like that kind of ferocious attacker we saw at Borussia Dortmund in the 16-17 season, it made him, like, I think, the world record sort of signing at a point. Ousmane Dembele, I think, is the attacker Chelsea should be prioritising. There's been so many reports about meetings with Barcelona over his contract, PSG wanting him, but apparently it's not sort of secure on that. And if Chelsea can get their ownership situation done and we can get into the transfer window quickly, but the potential of a free for Ousmane Dembele, where you're not having to pay in Barcelona some massive fee to get him, it feels like a shrewd piece of business in my opinion. I was looking at some stats released from Squawka today that looked at open play expected assists and expected assist per 90 in Europe's top 5 leagues in 2021-22, and as you can see, Ousmane Dembele top of both there. And you also consider that he's only played 21 league games this season for Barcelona. I think 12 goal contributions in the second half of the season. His performance against Real Madrid in that emphatic win at the Bernabeu was highly impressive, and just that creativity that Chelsea have lacked, someone one-on-one who can really take out players and try things. And I think Tuchel, his relationship with the player previously, the fact that maybe the player wants a bit of a reboot, it hasn't really worked at Barcelona, coming into Chelsea under a coach he likes, an environment that I think would hopefully give him enough minutes to get into the first team in an attack that's so uncertain. So any attacker coming in has got a good opportunity at the moment to kind of state their claim and feel like they can really take a hold of something. There's no one really settled at the moment in Chelsea's attack apart from Mason Mount, if you're kind of looking at the front three. So that would be my kind of, I want a maverick this summer, and I think Dembele very much suits the bill of Chelsea, can still be in there if we're not too late. I think that would be my attacker. Finally, I do want to speak about Jules Kounde, because my colleague Adam Newson at Football London wrote this piece. Jules Kounde sets Chelsea challenge with Todd Boehly prepared to complete Thomas Tuchel request. This is Adam's piece about basically how close Jules Kounde is, why there's a general confidence that Jules Kounde will be a Chelsea player this summer. I know there's been a little bit of concern very recently before recording this video about Diego Carlos signing for Aston Villa. I'm not quite sure how that's going to impact the deal, because we've known Carlos could have been on the move since like January to Newcastle when Aston Villa was linked. We've known Kounde could have been on the move. Sevilla are a bit of a selling club, and I'm not quite sure that's going to derail. I hope it doesn't derail the Kounde move, because that's so far down the line. And if Chelsea were maybe worried about that, you still think negotiations were going on. It kind of, to me, feels like a bit that deal is so far down the line now, and was so close, and the player wants it, and I think Sevilla know they're going to get a decent fee for Kounde, that you still feel confident. And it was interesting, Adam in his piece said, standing at 5 foot 10 inches, Kounde would not be classed as a traditional Premier League centre-back. However, sources close to the French international have told Football London that it is part of his desire to join Chelsea. Kounde wants to take on the challenge of playing in the English top flight. Even back in August, it was reported by The Athletic that Tuchel, I think in the dressing room around Chelsea players, was kind of prepping people for Kounde's arrival, and of course it didn't happen. So it's been overdue. I think it's going to happen, and I'm excited to see what Jules Kounde could do at Chelsea, because hopefully it's a shrewd piece of business, something that refreshes an area of the pitch, and hopefully, because of his age, he can develop into a really good and consistent defender for Chelsea in the Premier League. But that is it for today's edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. The Todd Boehly era has begun, I think we can say that, but we're just waiting for official confirmation. And as I said yesterday, knowing my luck, by the time this is uploaded, probably the official statement has been released. So if it has, happy days, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.